Superannuation and estate planning.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the traps there?
Well, some of the traps there are, the first trap just around estate planning generally is a lot of people don't have a will.
Yeah.
Now, that's a whole different topic, but it's vital that you actually have a will in place. Otherwise, someone else is going to make all those decisions for you. And
Who makes the decision?
The court will make the decisions. So there is a legislation in place that clearly specifies what actually happens, and ultimately a judge can rule what happens with regards to your children, your money, your business assets, absolutely everything. So a will can be a really, really simple document that clearly states, look, if I'm not here, this is what I want to have happen. It's not going to help you personally because you're not around anymore, but it's going to help every other person in your family and in your life to just have a well-structured affair. But it can do so much more than that as well. So it can protect money for future generations. It can lower the amount of tax that's being paid in a lot of circumstances. It can make sure that your family and your children are safe and secure. Yeah. With regards to superannuation, you've got a couple of options. You've got a death nomination, so you can actually instruct the trustees, if I'm not here, here's where I want the money to go. But that can be overruled. So it's at the trustee's discretion. You can then have something called a binding death nomination, and that's where you are instructing legally to the trustee, this is where I want the money to go, but you need to review that every 2 years because it is a legal document.
Okay.
Further, you can instruct within your will what you want to have happen to your superannuation if you don't have any death nominations in there. So there's quite a few different levels and different things you can do. And what you want to have is you want to have a situation where your superannuation potentially goes to the most tax-effective recipient, and that's someone who's a dependent.
Yep, okay. And always keep reviewing your will as well. Don't set and forget.
A lot of people think, I should change my will when there's a big change in circumstances. A lot of people only think about having a kid and getting married, maybe retiring or thereabouts. But it changes so regularly. Your kids are getting older. They're developing different personalities, you're buying and selling different assets, your superannuation's growing, your needs and your attentions change so frequently. You may become involved in a charity that wasn't around a couple of years ago and wanted to actually do something to help them out. You may have different relationships with different family members. Your life is constantly evolving, it's constantly changing, and the needs of your will should be kept up to date with all of those.
Do you talk to your family about your will?
Definitely, most definitely.
Because a lot of older Australians see that as a power base as they get older with their children, and it's all very secretive and you be nice to me or you'll get nothing in the will. Just fraught with dangers, isn't it?
It is really, really tricky, and money is one of those things that just tends to really cut through absolutely everything. Yeah. So it can cut through loyalty, it can cut through family ties, it can be a really big problem. So a lot of it does come down to the structure of your family and what you're comfortable with talking about. That being said, at the moment there is a massive transition of wealth from one generation to another. If you think about what Sydney property's worth, $1 million is very, very easy. And I speak to a lot of people who might have $1 million in superannuation, a house worth $1.5 million, and they've got 2 kids. That's $1.25 million per child. Now, that has never been a situation where $1 million inheritance is perfectly normal. But it is a life-changing amount of money. Yeah. And when you've got that transition from one generation to another, that's got to be done properly. Yeah. Because $1 million can be just as much a burden as it can be a privilege to a lot of people. It can create a lot of problems. People might have certain expectations, and if they're not met, you can leave behind such a terrible mess that you really should, if possible, have that conversation.
And it's quite easy for people to say, I'm not going to be around. But the last thing you want is to tear your family apart emotionally because they're arguing over a will that is silly or too complex or just doesn't sit well with the family.
Yeah. And probably the biggest thing is a lot of people are surprised by what's in the will. Yeah. And when you're surprised, you might react in a way that, had you known that was actually coming, you're going to react very, very differently.
Good to see you, Brenton. Thank you very much.
Not a problem.